let's stick with the advisory though, and what should people with surplus income be doing right now? To discuss some strategies on that, Roger Perrett from Freshwater Wealth joins me up on the desk. Roger, good to see you. I mean, I assume there's a number of things you can do here, but I did just have a conversation about superannuation. If you have surplus income, is putting it into super a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny, whenever I mention I'm a financial advisor, whether I'm in an Uber or socially, people often say, "Oh, what should I be doing with my money?" So one of the things is, should we be investing in super? That would obviously for your retirement is a great strategy to consider.
So tell us a few different ways to do this. You can obviously salary sacrifice. You can try and meet the contribution cap and reduce your tax somewhat, but all of those investments, I guess, ultimately put you in a better place when you retire.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a whole number of ways that we can contribute. Generally two though. One is where we contribute and we get a tax deduction for doing so, whether via salary sacrifice or putting a personal contribution in, or one is where we're not getting any sort of tax deduction, but at least we're saving tax going forward.
Let's talk about other ways. So if you had, say, offset money and you didn't really know what to do with it, should you be paying down debt, doing what we just discussed, doing a bit of both, or what's the difference between good and bad debt?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. If we start off in terms of the debt, we've got let's just say it's 100,000, and one debt is what we call bad debt. So bad debt is where we've borrowed for whatever it may be, but we're not getting a tax deduction. So we're not getting any income. It's not an asset. We consider that bad debt. So if you put the 100,000 into the loan, I think average rate's around about 6.2. You're going to save yourself around about 6.2%. So that's one option. The second option is good debt. So that's where you may have borrowed to purchase an asset. Maybe it's like an investment property or shares. Maybe a similar interest rate, but because you're getting a tax deduction, let's just say you're on the top tax rate, maybe the saving's only 3% if you put your money in there. The third one, as you just mentioned, in terms of super, it really depends on your risk profile. Generally, the higher the risk profile, the better chance we've got to get a better return on our super money than we're receiving or what we're having to pay on our home loan. And that's really key. We don't want to be investing and getting a lower rate than we could have been if we'd put it off the debt.
Now, I know, and we have to reiterate, this is not financial advice. We're not giving anybody financial advice, but let's go to that conundrum again of, say, 100,000. Would you then sort of go, okay, well, I'll reduce my home loan and therefore I'll be paying less per month,
yes,
or I put it in super and therefore when I retire I'm in a bit of stead? I guess everybody's circumstances are different, but what's the kind of key thought here?
Yeah, so it probably depends a little bit in terms of your goals. I saw a client the other day and I was thinking about all these fund strategies, and then they said, but we plan to move to Spain in 6 months, and that sort of threw it all out the window. So it really depends on the goals. And it really does depend on that risk profile. I've just provided a chart there, one of Australia's biggest superannuation providers, and this is a balanced fund, which traditionally a lot of people are in. Their 10-year performance was around about 8%, where over the last 10 years, home loan rates are between 3 and 6%. So just on a position in terms of dollars, people who have chosen to invest in super actually were ahead compared to paying off their mortgage. Now things can change, but and as I said, it depends on their risk profile. If you want to be conservative, maybe not. That's not the case, but certainly with that chart, it shows that putting into super financially would have been a good move.
What's the risk then, though, that you get to retirement age and you still have a mortgage because you haven't paid it down, and then does that reduce your, potential golden years?
Yeah, potentially. I guess it all comes down to the discipline of actually putting the money in, because there is a strategy. You're right. You could be putting money into super rather than your mortgage, and then when you get to retirement, you could then use your super to clear that bad debt. So you're right. We could use super and to clear the debt at the same time.
All right, let's talk about borrowing to invest. It always sounds a little bit like, is this a good deal? Is it not? What's your view?
Yeah, well, I guess borrowing to invest is all about being able to borrow at a rate which is lower than what you're receiving. So if you're borrowing at a rate, call it 6%, and you're getting 8%, I guess the difference, the 2% you're making, using other people's money. So, but you're right, it really does depend on your risk profile because you're magnifying those gains. But if it goes down, do you mean? It's also magnifying the losses. So it really depends on the person's time frame and their risk profile as well.
Now, there is also the thought of investing in somebody else's name or entity. What are the risks associated with this? The first one that would come to my mind would be, say, divorce.
Yeah, sure. When we invest in other entities, it could be investing in your partner's name. It could be investing in a company structure via a trust, for example, or directly in a company, or it could actually be investing in what's called an investment bond. So the key is here, and it depends again whether you've got debt or not, but it really depends on the tax rate and your risk profile again, because these tax rates, if they're lower than yours, it's a good thing, but you wouldn't want to go and invest in these other entities if the tax rates were higher than yours. So that's probably something to consider, yeah.